haven't seen that in like 25 years.
Really?
Well, I did a little digital something like 20 years ago, but it was silent, you know, a little remastering. But woof, it's deep. Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
Yaphet. Yeah, it's deep. I realized when I was watching it that I was paying off a childhood debt. My mother took me to see Mad, Mad World when I was 11. When they had like the premiere showcase screenings, like, you know, 3 projectors.
Cinerama.
And it was my only cultural experience at that time in my life. I never saw anything, no plays or anything. And there was a moment that I've since seen again when they restored it around 2 or 3 years ago, where before they went to the first intermission, they kind of, because it was a 3-hour movie and had an intermission, and it was a parallel action story with tons of comedic characters. And before they went to intermission, in order to keep the audience charged, you know, while they were out getting popcorn, they started intercutting all the different stories in a way, and the score started to swoon. And I remember as a child, and I felt it again when I saw the restoration, I felt an ecstatic religious experience of comedic glee that this was like the debt paid off. So to see it here after not seeing it all those years, it was kind of full circle. It was very, I'm a little...
I bet. I bet.
I love Paul Anderson. I love Paul Anderson. It's like having a Bugatti deliver pizza. Thank you for...
Are you kidding? When this movie meant so much to me when it came out, and it was great then, and it was great a couple years later, and it was great 10 years later, and it's still great now. It ages so well. There's nothing about it that feels like, oh, that was, I liked it back then. I mean, it's still as a miracle that it was then. But like Matt, and I actually watched Mad, Mad, Mad World, but the difference between something like you know, these parallel action or sort of adventure or anything like that is like in Mad Mad World is the cast. I mean, this is like, you know, this is the best cast from, you know, not just from Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, but to the waitress who's with chorizo and eggs, and every Indian in the back of the truck. You know, I mean, it's like. But I want to ask you some questions that I know the answers to that maybe people don't, but I want to sort of try to go chronologically a little bit in how a script came into your lap, because this is after Midnight Run, or after Beverly Hills Cop, and like Stanley Kubrick, we always used to have to wait like 7 years before the next Marty Brest movie. It would take forever and ever and ever. We'd wait and wait and wait. So
well, it didn't evolve quite that way. I had some idea. I don't even remember what it was, and you know, CAA sent over some writers to talk to me, and George Gallo came in. This is after Beverly Hills Cop, and I was like a person again in Hollywood after being a non-person. So I had, you know, so George Gallo came in, and he struck me as being the totally wrong person for whatever idea that I had. I forgot what it was. And I said, well, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And he starts walking out, and he said, a friend of mine, you know, friend of mine's a cop, and he had to go somewhere and extradite a prisoner, and the prisoner wouldn't fly, so they had to take the train back or bus back. I said, come back in. And we said, and actually the guy he was talking about is in the movie. He's the guy that De Niro goes to get the telephone number, Big Dog.
Big Dog, hey Big Dog.
Stan White, legendary ex-homicide detective. So that's all he said, that one line, that the guy had to take a bus back.
Right.
And I thought, that's like a problem. That's a good problem. And we started working on it, and I was obsessed at creating like a Swiss clock of having all these characters, paying off that debt, having each character develop in an arc, and have them come together in a way with each one having their own development and each character finding out things at a certain time that's influenced by other characters. I was obsessed about creating a perfect structure. And we worked over and over and over and over again. We didn't really know what we were going to do with that airport scene. We never could figure out. So we were actually shooting the movie and didn't know how that was going to work out.
Right.
But after Beverly Hills Cop, which was a total, you know, that's a whole other story, a whole improvisational, not just improvisational in scenes, but, you know,
Story
improvising the movie.
Right.
And having it, you know, pretend to look like it's coherent when it's over. So my tolerance for hot water was very high. So
Right.
I was totally cool with not knowing. And the studio was in a panic. I said, "Oh, we'll figure it out. You know, it's 3 weeks from now." I said, "Yeah."
But back up,
Yeah.
because while the structure feels like a Swiss clock, everything within it feels completely chaotic and improvised and like.
Well, this was my third movie. The third movie I was allowed to complete.
Right.
There was one in between I wasn't allowed to complete. But at my first movie, I was like a kid. I know you did a movie when you were a kid, but you were Paul Anderson. You're fucking, you're a different case. I was trying to there were no young directors, and I was trying to be professional, and I was very anal about making sure everything worked out. And the movie was very stiff and dry. But right at the end of the shooting, there was this scene. It was Going in Style. This movie with the 3 old guys robbing the bank. There was a scene at a crap table, and we didn't have enough time to shoot it. So I just put up lots of cameras, and we shot it. And the mechanics of crap and how it bets. I studied it, so I know I forgot it right afterwards. But we just were shooting so fast, and George Burns, who was like a great improviser, and I'd never used his ability to improvise because I was a schmuck.
Right.
We just started flying. Every take was different. I thought, okay, fuck it. It's the end of the shoot. I'll just shoot all the film, and I'll figure it out later. That scene took as long to cut as the rest of the movie took to cut.
Right.
And it was totally based on little pieces of dialogue juxtaposed against other pieces that had no relationship to each other, but were like written together to look as if it was an actual scene.
Right.
And it had a life that the anally proper scenes didn't have.
Right.
So that lesson came in very handy on Beverly Hills Cop, because it was, so made up as we went along. And then with it, Beverly Hills Cop had sort of a dopey structure. It was like passable. It was just to hold all the stuff, to glue all the fun onto. But then I decided I'd want a really anal structure, perfect structure, and use those sort of fuck around skills.
Right.
First of all, we wrote every scene to death, so every scene was great. But then, after we got that and knew exactly what each scene should be, we would improvise on top of it. But then, using the technique from that crap game, we would shoot like that red, the scene. Some of it amazes me now, like the red spar. What's your name? Each take, we would do new improvisations. That scene never occurred in space.
Right.
But yet, that sort of random thing of him not knowing the name, and it was meticulously. By the way, we have the captain of the editing team, Billy Weber's back there.
The legendary.
And we meticulously worked together to take all these, not only a scene that gets improvised in a master shot, but each side had improvisations that didn't relate to the other. And I would keep track and say, okay, we got to get a piece to match that piece, and we just, so to answer your question, there was an anal Swiss clock structure,
Right.
beautifully written scenes that were then improvised and reworked take to take,
Right.
then in the cutting room.
Okay, but now I'm gonna guess that you think of Robert De Niro first, and who goes with Charles, who goes with De Niro second, right? Is that would be right?
Yeah.
So was Charles Grodin your first thought?
Well,
Because
It was
yeah, go ahead.
It was a problem because we had De Niro, which was great, and the other character had to fuck with De Niro, had to fuck him up, and every actor was so intimidated by De Niro,
Right.
and even if a scene required like that. Did you ever have sex with a chicken scene, which we can talk about in a second? It's like the perfect example. He wouldn't let an actor fuck him up. An actor had to fuck him up.
Right.
Nobody could fuck him up. And Grodin came in and wiped the floor with him.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I mean, there was a shot in Heaven Can Wait where Grodin is listening to Warren Beatty at a dinner table scene, and Grodin's listening, and he turns to somebody like with this deadpan reaction, like, what a schmuck I'm listening to here. But there was nothing on his face, and I was, how is he doing that? This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. He's doing nothing, but it's amazing. So I was always a fan, but he was able to fuck De Niro up, and he was, you know, as we started to go, he's a writer.
Yeah.
And Bob and Chuck were directors too, so it was like having like an army, and
Right.
everybody knew how to support the direction of the story.
Right. Not just go wildly off
Yeah.
into the night.
So it was every day was like, how do we pull this off? Like, we got this. If we shoot it, it's fine.
Right.
But how do we?
Right.
Like, there are a couple of like the very last scene where he walks up to the phone booth. There was a whole scene, and you know, like, what would you do if you had the money and whatever? I forgot what the scene was. A whole long dialogue scene, and it took like 17 takes to get the scene good and have them wind up at the phone right at the last. And Grodin said, we should do it without dialogue. I said, no, you don't understand. It's got to be, you know, and after every take, he said, I'm telling you, we should try it without dialogue. I said, you can't try it without dialogue. This is where the guy decides to let you go. And finally we got it, and I was ready to wrap, and he said, please try it once without dialogue. I said, okay, only once, because, you know, we did it once, and that was in the movie. So, you know, and he was right. So, you know, there was always an effort to try and find a new value, you know, in the scene, in each take.
Right. So then, did you shoot anywhere near chronologically? Was there any? Can you remember at all?
Well, I know we
structure?
started on the East Coast and worked ourselves west.
Right.
In fact, here's a little trivia. I wasn't policing at this time, but I was very anal about screen direction. That when they're going to when he's going to New York, he's going towards the right in every shot, walking everything. And when they're going to LA, they're always going towards the left. And it kind of gives you a subliminal sense of, you know. So we shot it kind of, I don't know if that's chronological order, but almost.
I mean, it misses a little bit of the opening, you know, but it.
I mean, actually, you know, you could see some of the early scenes were a little stiff, like, you know, like the scene on the train where they're talking about the chicken. It's like, that was like early, like we hadn't found the way we could all like play yet.
Right.
So that was sort of by the books. It was like a scene, you know.
Right.
Like,
Right.
You know, everybody kind of stuck to the dialogue.
Right.
But then after a while, we started getting loose. And, you know, being a fan of the editing process, I just knew, you know, I was given some production stills, and I was reminded I always had a pen around my neck because we were rewriting, like, take, and I had to know what to get in the other coverage and all this kind of stuff.
So you were mainly with one camera, not two cameras.
Yeah, mainly. In fact, the scene, you know, occasionally we do two cameras in the same direction, but back in the day, DPs never wanted to do this.
Never wanted, yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
And the one scene you know, I told the guys ahead of time, we must do it this way, is the having sex with a chicken scene.
Right.
The boxcar scene.
Right.
Because, and that's an example of the casting thing, because the Grodin character had to take the De Niro character who, you know, jumped on top of the train and was yelling at him, and he was so ferocious, and had to turn him, had to melt him.
Right.
And he really had to do it. De Niro would not give an inch, and he had to do it. And it was we called it the dreaded night boxcar scene.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how to crack that problem as we got closer and closer and closer.
Right.
I had some vague idea about, I called it the Walsh and the Duke puppet show, like have him go, he kind of does it, one character than the other character, but it didn't go anywhere.
Right.
And we kept shooting take after take, and De Niro would just stay silent. And finally, Grodin came up with this chicken, sex with a chicken thing, and De Niro started to laugh. I thought, oh my God. And I thought, oh. And then I discovered a rule on that, which is when he said it, I said, oh, that's fucking hilarious. But we can't use that. You can't use having sex with a chicken. But that was great, but we can't use it.
Right.
And I realized whenever you say that to yourself, use it.
Yeah, you've got something good, right? So if it is a journey, sort
It's
of
Paul Anderson.
Oh
my God.
One of the first people who was ever nice to me in Hollywood, California, was Marty Brest. I got to go into his office, and he was nice to me, and we even talked about making a movie. We had a nice idea, but nothing ever happened. But maybe one day.
I don't even remember that.
It was an idea.
You were like 7 years old.
I was 7 years old, and you called me Paulie Three Names.
Yeah.
Paulie Three Names.
That's his mob name.
My mob name. It was about a guy who kidnapped girls, and they drove around and looked at Christmas lights because he wanted to just have somebody to go look at these Christmas lights in a neighborhood.
Call my people.
Exactly. But okay, so just talk about. I'm obsessed with the casting because Michael Chinch is a name that I've seen on a lot of different things, and Bonnie Timmerman, obviously, I've seen her name as well.
Michael Chinch.
Michael Chinch.
Stunning.
Right.
Stunning. He really. She started it, but he really. I give him the credit for doing a stunning job. I mean, he'd bring up choices that were amazing.
He might even be responsible for Fast Times at Ridgemont High casting.
I think so.
I mean that.
I think so.
So, but how to get that balance of actors, pros, but and clearly locals who can deliver, but also again not get intimidated by Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin and keep up. Was he leapfrogging ahead of you and bringing you
No, we really cast it to death, like really meticulously and repeatedly. I mean, for the Grodin character, I met everybody. Everybody wanted to do it. And to answer your other question, I cast Bob first, and then I fell in love with Grodin, and it was at Paramount, where it just made Beverly Hills Cop, which was a big hit for them. And I said, okay, I got it, Grodin. They said, De Niro and Charles Grodin? I don't think so. I said, well, that's kind of it. They said, well, how about, this one, that one, this one, that one? I said, no, this is really it. They said, well, we can't do it. I said, well, can I take it somewhere else? They said, yeah, take it somewhere else. So I called up my dear friend Casey Silver, who was a baby executive at Universal. And I said, and he took it right away, and we did it.
But backing up, but De Niro, I remember at the time there was there was a kind of a little sense of confusion, like Robert De Niro's going to be funny, that was kind of like this big question mark, like Robert De Niro's serious, he's not funny,
Well, it depends on what you consider comedy,
right,
and how you
right.
He's serious,
exactly,
and he's funny,
right,
which is what I wanted. So I knew.
But I remember there being skepticism about the movie, as if like he was going to come out and yuck it up, and that's not.
Yeah, people said that. People said De Niro. I said, yeah.
Right.
And because it's about the sculpting of the moments, really. So when you have like Grodin, and I mean, it's about reaction shots and beats, and the timing of everything. I was meticulous. Billy and I and the other editors were meticulous in the editing room. We'd see it. We had lots of screenings. And I didn't know they were supposed to be like previews, because I didn't give a shit about the cards or anything.
Right.
But I would sit there with a little tape recorder and say 3 frames off that shot of the thing. Take 2 frames and add it to the shot of the thing, to get, after every screening, to get the timing of reaction shots and all that stuff.
I know we've talked about this before. You do screen a lot, right?
Well, I did with this, and it was in, again, back in the day, and then I'd get up like I was the focus group guy, and nobody knew, and I'd ask questions, but not like who'd you like, not those kind of questions. Like, did you understand when he took the thing, what the thing, filmmaking questions, not in terms of trying to pander, but in trying to see, am I getting it across?
Right.
Which is what you should do theoretically.
But I mean, it must have always played like this, or was there something early on? I mean, when I first saw it, it played like this. Every time I see it, it plays like this. Was there ever early on when you didn't have it playing like this? How did it come into shape?
Well, I think, Billy, is this the one where we played it in a non-comedy room? Or is that Beverly Hills? Yeah. I think there was a certain theater, because of the size of the audience, at Universal, and we said, this is the room where comedies go to die. Like, there are dramas in that room. Right. Something about it's too warm. Like, on Beverly Hills Cop, we noticed when we had screenings, the thermostat was directly related to the reaction. Right. That if it was a little too warm, if it was a little cold, so it was fine. But there was some room where it didn't play as a comedy at all. But again, it was it was all about tuning it in, because it's all about it's almost like silent movies in a way. It's about the beats. It's about the way people react to what everybody's thinking about each other is sort of the frequency on which it operates. What each character silently is thinking about another character. So that's it takes a lot of calibration to pull off with all the people. So until you get it, it can misfire easily.
Well, movies that have a lot of plot, which I guess this does, generally are a drag. They're kind of like they're plot heavy. But I was surprised how rapidly everybody's introduced. It's kind of like it's only like 15 minutes, and pretty much everybody's introduced, with the exception of Dennis Farina. You kind of wait a little extra to sort of bring him in.
I was surprised how as I was watching, I was saying, man, this thing's. I didn't remember it. That I didn't remember the experience of watching the movie, and as I was watching it, I thought, God, it's really slow. Was it that slow? It started really slow, and then as it started to, then I had that sort of mad world thing. Like, I got it, I did it. They spin around each other,
Yeah. The center of the movie that we have to talk about is the beautiful scene with Wendy Phillips is his ex-wife, right, and the daughter.
Is she here tonight? I heard she might be here tonight. Wendy?
Oh, that's a drag, because that's just. It was great then, and it was great now. Sort of
it's
really,
a beautiful
scene.
I remember being taken by the daughter's shots, like she's breathless. There's something like she's so in the middle of like a thing. Like, I remember when we shot it, like, who is this girl? How did she get that? That's so exactly what it needed. That's another scene, by the way, that had more dialogue in it, where De Niro asked more questions of the daughter, like, what are you doing? You have a boyfriend? Whatever it is. And he said, trust me, let's get rid of some of that dialogue. I said, really? He said, yeah. And he was totally right. The pain of the silence of him just standing there is beautiful.
Yeah. It's just the one question of how old are you now, and then nothing. It's heartbreaking.
It's a beautiful scene.
Which leads to the music, because you worked with Danny Elfman from back before the beginning.
Yeah.
From the olden times at AFI.
In the mid-'70s, when I was a student at AFI.
But so what made you think of him to do this? He had done a few things for Tim Burton, but...
he never did anything like this, but I don't know why I went with Danny, because he was very new at the time. But I had known him from when he was, before Oingo Boingo, he was in the Mystic Knights of Oingo Boingo, which was like a street theater kind of thing. It wasn't like a rock and roll band. I mean, it was like a street theater thing, and they played every genre of music. They played authentic 20s jazz. They played everything. And, you know, they weren't making a living. So Danny, I believe, said, okay, fuck that. I can do any style of music. I'll do rock and roll. It was like a contrivance that he was successful at. And they finally had a career, and then he segued into composing. But I don't remember why I picked him, although I knew him well.
But how could you possibly? This was like, I remember. You know, there was a kind of time. First of all, it's like probably one of the most imitated scores. I remember for about 10 or 15 years afterwards, anything that had two guys in it had music that sounded like Midnight Run. It was like, oh, you know. But it was peculiar because it was emotional, and it kind of could support this sort of action comedy where it felt like before that it had been like a code that had never quite been cracked. So I have no idea what you would whisper to him to try to guide him towards that.
I don't recall. I mean, Billy would know better. But what we would do is on movies, we would temp the movie to death. Like you really spend a lot of time doing temp music. And in the process of doing it, it's almost like an artist doing sketches for a mural. You say, oh, the piece of music that we play in this scene, we should play a slower version of that in that scene, and then there'll be a subliminal connection. You start to figure out all of that stuff before the composer even shows up. It's like your sketchbook of what the overall picture should be, where themes should be repeated, how they should be repeated, if, you know, when things should start, when things should stop. You get all that hammered out. So by the time I engaged with Danny, I was already, you know, I had a very solid grounding in what needed to be done. Not in terms of the actual sound of the music, although I knew it, I felt it had to be Chicago, because the character came from Chicago. It had to be like Chicago, slightly old school. This is slightly old school. You know, and I think he did a great job. It was out of his wheelhouse, but not really, because his wheelhouse is talent. So
this is going to take a long time. I've got so many questions.
That was an eighth of the house clapping.
Yeah. We covered. So then take it. So how'd you figure out the ending?
Oh well, George Gallo. This was he had done a movie before, but this was the first movie where somebody really like had their foot on his neck. I mean, I remember, you know, this was sort of, eventually we were in a room and I would type onto the, you know, the computer screen with the orange letters, you know, in those days, you know, and he would sit there and we would type. But in terms of the structure, I remember as we were approaching handing it in, I said, okay, this is too fucking complicated. Let's come in on the weekend when there's nobody on the lot. We'll set up like a row of like 8 of those folding tables, and nobody will be there in the little sort of garden area of Paramount, you know, that. And we'll set them all up. There'll be nobody around, and we'll lay out every scene. Or we can stand back, or we can do this, and you know. And it was such a fevered time. George actually said, I can't take the pressure. And I looked at him, I said, did you actually do that? He said, no, I'm okay. So it was really, you know, that was even before we started shooting. So it was, for that scene, we didn't know how it was going to resolve, how every character was going to come together in a theatrically satisfying way that made sense. And he wrote version after version after version after version after version, and we finally kind of figured it out.
But it's funny because normally you would, I guess the expectation would be, oh, it has to come to some kind of shootout, when in fact it's so satisfying, just the suspense of it, and that you really, your eye is not on some big shootout to see everybody go down, and you've had so much action adventure the entire time. Really all you care about is what's going to happen between Grodin and De Niro and how that will resolve itself. And the satisfaction of seeing him and Dennis Farina together.
Well, we knew like what each character had to wind up with.
Right.
How it was going to happen. We had not a clue.
Right.
With the thing with the wire and the money and the discs and the thing and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's perfectly clear. Talk about Yaphet Kotto. What would it like to work with him? Seems intimidating.
Well, Yaphet didn't like me at all, and it was really interesting. And I really would. The actors that have not liked me, there's very few, but they really don't like me. And occasionally there've been like DPs. Most of them don't like me. And I'm always on their ass. Like, that doesn't bother me that they don't like me. Like that. And I was really on his ass. I was on his ass, and he hated me. He comes from like some lost Judaic tribe. He's Jewish. He was Jewish. He's from wherever they're from, Ethiopia, his family. He's Jewish. He didn't know that I was Jewish, and he kept calling me anti-Semitic. He said, "You're anti-Semitic." I didn't get into it. I got Jew cred. I don't need to, So he really didn't like me. In fact, when we were shooting on the jet, we had this little real jet, and it was in a hangar. We were shooting the scene in the hangar, and it was tiny, and we were cramped. And Yaphet couldn't say the word discs. He said, "Okay, make sure he takes the discs," or whatever the line is. And we'd shoot it. And I said, "Yaphet, I think you said dicks." He said, "No, I said discs." I said, "I don't think so. I think let's just try it again." We did it again and again and again and again. I said, I think, well, maybe we can take a piece of sound, but let's try it again. And it got really heated to the point where this actually happened. You know how big Yaphet is.
Mm-hmm.
Yaphet stood up, and I stood up, and we went face to face. We were like in a fight. I don't know what we were going to do. De Niro got in between us. He said, "Okay, calm down, calm down." We were like bumping chests. I was like up to his, So finally I said, "Fuck it, put in 1,000-foot load. We're just going to keep the camera on you." That's like 10 minutes. And just keep saying the line. And we ran the whole thing. Dicks. And he never said the word. And Billy had to sort of like wedge in, and so he hated me. He hated me, but he did a great job. In fact, the line where he says, "I'm going to get a heart attack," I know that is not.
He's talking about you.
He's talking about me. We were down there shooting. He didn't know. We were down there with a long lens up in the balcony. He was like, "This fucking guy. He's going to give me a heart attack." I'm like, "Listen, I said, that's good. We're using that." Yeah. In fact, when Grodin's in the car, when they're in the car bouncing through the desert, all that stuff. But that was before there was playback. So they'd mount all the cameras on this thing, and Bob would drive, and he's like, boom over the thing, and the sound, and in the back, the sound man had to be there, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to hear what I didn't want to send out the car and not. So they like put a screw and a little web, and I had to hold on with one hand, like flying out of the car, so that I could listen to the takes. And when Grodin is saying something bad's going to happen, this is when something bad happens. He's talking about like this.
De Niro driving a car, and
it's like, it was really horrifying. It was like, I had faith in Bob's mastery of all things physical. He played saxophone in New York. He could do anything. So I thought, okay, he can be a stunt driver.
He seems so happy in this movie. I know he's not playing a character who's happy. I think what I'm seeing just behind his eyes that he's enjoying it. He seems like he seems happy to be there. And I don't mean that I'm seeing Robert De Niro. There just seems to be such joy between the two of them. If you're kind of a connoisseur of acting, you can't help but just notice how much they seem to adore each other.
He's Robert De Niro, and he was really, and he's young Robert De Niro in this thing. And he approached it with the same way he approached Raging Bull. He solved that problem. He's going to solve this problem. He's going to be as honest in scenes as he is in anything.
Yeah.
Which is why the other actor had to be not only a good actor, but a sparring partner.
Absolutely.
That was like, and they would each, buck with each other in a way, that helped.
Yeah, that's mutual admiration of stepping on the court with an opponent that you know is good.
Well, he would do it with anybody. I mean, he would do it with, like there's a little shot with Wendy Phillips,
right,
where he said, she says, you guys have been on the news, and he said, anything good?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, he just said in one take over his back, and it elicited a beautiful piece on her. So that's his style. And once I saw that both of these guys can play in that game, and they were so spectacular at it, I thought, whoa, I know how to do this. I remember this from Going in Style.
Right.
I could, and it was invigorating for me. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Beverly Hills Cop a little bit?
I don't know.
No?
Whatever.
Well, it's coming up. Eddie Murphy, that was, I mean, like 48 hours it happened, maybe? But this was the first thing from the beginning. And the one story I'd like you to tell that I really enjoy is the day that he drove up to the Would you mind telling that story?
Well, there's a line in it where he pulls up in front of this men's club, that thing.
Yeah.
He pulls up his broken down car, and there was no dialogue intended in that scene. And he said, well, I'll tell you what he said in a second.
Yeah.
But what preceded that is we were shooting the scene inside the men's club where he flips the guy through the ice, whatever, all that stuff. And he showed up late. He never done it. He wasn't the Eddie Murphy superstar yet. Mm-hmm. He showed up late, like an hour late. And on the set, in front of everybody, I said, you're not allowed to do that. All these people were here, and you're not allowed to do that shit. It's disrespectful. It's not going to be good for you, and you can't do it. It's going to hurt the day. It's going to hurt your performance, and everybody's here, and you can't do that. I said it in front of everybody, and he went off, and he wouldn't talk to me that day. It was like a little like a lover's thing, because I was dad, and I firmly, but and he wouldn't talk to me, and like I would say to him, okay, Eddie, you stand here and do this, and here we go. He's trying to hurt me. Mm-hmm. And then in this scene where the last scene we shot of the day, he pulls his car up, and he says to the guy, be careful, all this stuff happened to my car last time. It was, it's a better line than that, but it was so funny and so appropriate and out of the blue and unexpected. Luckily, we had a boom just to get the door slammed there, but it was a great line. And then he walked off, and then he came back, he went,
I gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha.
I gotcha.
Love me again, fucker.
Yeah.
So it was really sweet. It was touching. Then we made up after that.
We're not going to take questions from the audience, but and this is a real, I don't know the answer to this, but a friend of mine wants you to tell a story. I honestly don't know this. Is there a story about Stuart Cornfeld, Hervé Villachez, and a barracuda that would be appropriate to tell to the audience?
Well, it's a non-story. It doesn't
it sounds like
it doesn't have a plot. It's just like a moment that happened. Like, when Hervé Villachez, do you know who Hervé is? Well, I had known him in New York when I was in college, and he was like a starving artist. And then I wrote a part for him in my AFI film, and I said, I wrote a part for you. I can't pay you. I can't pay you to come out. Would you come out and do it for free? He said, of course. Somebody wrote a part for me. I'll come out. So he came out. This is mid-'70s, before he became famous. And so he was living in my place, and he was like suicidally depressed, and he would have a Bowie knife he would wear for whatever reason. And again, this is a non-story. There's no punchline coming. So one day, Stuart Cornfeld, who passed away sadly around 2 years ago, who was a great producer, very funny, was also a student at AFI. And somehow we got in our heads to go to rent a boat off the Santa Monica Pier and go fishing, and we can catch fish so we can eat them too. So, because we really didn't have money to spend, but we could write it off as food because we were film students. So we got in this boat and we went out in this boat, and the fog came in, and we didn't know where we were. None of us knew anything about this. And somebody caught a barracuda or some fucking crazy ass fish and pulled it into the rowboat. We were terrified, first of all, because it was cold and damp. We couldn't see 20 feet in either direction. We didn't know where land was. It was like this. And it was already a little Buñuel. And so somebody caught a barracuda, and it got on the thing, and it was going like that. It was a tiny thing, and everybody's like terrified, like, ah. And Hervé pulled out his Bowie knife, jumped on it, straddled it, and that's the story. It was an image. It's not a plot. It's just like, that happened. You saw that? Yeah.
That story makes the rounds. I just wanted
Seriously?
to hear. No, you, Stuart Kornfeld, Hervé Villachez on a boat and a barracuda is a
and an
great
actor named
story.
Ken Lerner, who was in my AFI film. He was on the boat too, I believe.
But that was around. So it was what was the name of the film? Goodbye.
Hot
Tomorrow's.
Tomorrows.
Was it?
Thank you.
Hot Tomorrows.
Very good.
Yeah. You see it? It's on YouTube. You
No,
can see
it
it.
isn't. I took it off.
Is it? Did you?
I think the end is on it, but the end makes no sense out of the whole. It's not. I mean, it looks semi-interesting. The whole movie cost $33,000. It's like an Ed Wood movie, basically. If Ed Wood wanted to do a Jewish pensive.
Was that when AFI was at the Greystone Mansion?
Yeah.
Because you can see that.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, I want to ask you a question. Can I? The scene in the bowling alley.
Yes.
You know that scene, and yeah, everybody knows the scene. What was the room like that day? Because I know that Daniel Day-Lewis is there with the thing, and when you have an actor like that doing that, that's who you're talking to in between shots.
Yes.
That's what's going on.
Yes.
That, there's no like, okay, that was good. Let's try. No, that you're dealing with that level of psychosis. What was that day like? What was it like to be in that room?
High intensity, pretty high. It was great, but it was wonderful because that bowling alley that is in the basement of the old AFI. It was dusty, and we refurbished it back to its original thing, and there was nowhere to hide, so there was only like 4 of us and Daniel and Paul Dano, and it was intense, long stretches of dialogue, but there was a kind of element of ridiculousness to it because everybody had booties on because you couldn't walk with your feet on the bowling floor and smuck it all up. So as intense as it was, everybody had like those like surgical booties on, But it was intense, and the only thing I really remember about it was that we hadn't really mapped out exactly how he was going to start throwing bowling pins at him, and so he just started doing it at Paul, real bowling pins and real bowling balls, and he did kind of catch himself and say, "We should really map this out," Like, yeah. So, it's like De Niro, I'm sure. I mean, but the pleasure that he might be playing, Jack Walsh in a hard ass, but there's such joy watching this movie. It's given me such inspiration. Everybody, this is the first time anybody's seen this movie, or has everybody seen it 1,000 times?
First
There's a lot of
timers?
first timers.
Wow. Wow.
That's exciting.
I mean, when you get a guy like that, or like Daniel Day-Lewis or Pacino, it's like, people say, "Oh, do you go to the theater a lot?" I can't sit 90 feet away from a performance. I can't. When you see performances like that from 7 feet away, not using a monitor, but like standing next to the camera and watching that, you know, watching these miracles.
Yeah.
You know, how can you see a performance, you know, from 100 feet away? You know, these guys do stuff. You wonder, where does this come from? You know, in each take, it has like a different truth. Like, where does it? You know, so I've seen amazing things, as I know you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like some sort of miracle, some
Yeah.
divine thing. I mean, there's one thing we shot that's not in the movie when we were trying to find the answer to that question, to how to make De Niro lighten up with the.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things Groden did is make up a little. We tried like making up a little stupid song. And I went in the thing, and you hit me in the head, and then I went, you know, like a child makes up a song. And, so, you know, and we tried each time. There were improvs, and we had 2 cameras. I finally got the guy to go with 2 cameras. And De Niro cut him off and started a song. He didn't know this was coming. A song in character, written the way the character would write a song, like a character that has no sense of lyrical fun, like a lead-footed, I'm gonna do it too. You know, and it was so devastating, and it was, you know, like 10 lines. It was brilliant. We didn't use it because it didn't, unfortunately. But it's like you look at that and go, where does that come from?
Yeah.
How can you write that kind of stuff in the character's mind off the cuff?
Well, what was the initial? Was it for this film that you guys met for the first time? Or
De Niro?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was a god of mine.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you could imagine, of everybody's.
Yeah.
You know, and it was insane.
Did he have a Bowie knife and a Barracuda? How did that? What was that first meeting like? Just take us through that.
What, the first meeting?
Yes. Sitting down with De Niro at that time, height of his powers.
I mean, you know, when I saw De Niro for the first time, I think when people would see De Niro for the first time, like any of these guys, they like stop dead. It's like your mind can't process what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because it's like an icon, but it's not an icon, it's multiple icons. And there's the normal person. It's like confusing. Your brain can't like so people would like freeze. I remember the first time I was on a rooftop. I don't remember much, but I remember I said something. Sometimes in tense situations, I'm sure you do this too. You get like this insane overconfidence. You like, you say, okay, it's Robert De Niro. Fuck it. You know, I'm going to say something. That's a little. I don't remember what it was, but I remember he went. You know, I thought, oh my God, that's Robert De Niro doing that for me. You know. But what was weird is that at the end of the day, when we finished shooting, you know, when you see him in all these movies, you see all the different characters. But when I was shooting, he doesn't look like a different, you know, it looks like he's just wearing a leather jacket and I got his hair. At the end of the day, when he came out of the motorhome, he would be wearing like a stupid-ass windbreaker, and he had a script under his arm, and he had a different head.
Right.
It was a different, I thought, wait a minute.
Right.
I thought that's just how he looks. It was a different head. His eyes were different.
Yeah.
His face was different.
Yeah.
It was like.
Yeah. No, I have seen that too.
It's really weird.
It's a very peculiar skill or something that actors have where suddenly their eyes are like further apart when they're and like I don't know when it happened, or you're looking at them through the camera and you kind of take your eye away. Like, when did it happen that they became somebody else? For sure.
Yeah. I mean, he was so, you know, as the years go by, I understand more about his process. Like, I remember, and you could see the difference between the two guys. Like, when we'd be out, you can't tell in the movie, but we were shooting in like freezing weather throughout. Like the scenes that they're just walking around. I was wearing like parkas and you know, and ski pants and Sorel boots and all that. It was really freezing. And in between takes, sometimes when we'd be setting up for the next shot, he'd be standing around, not doing anything. I said, Bob, you know, go inside, don't save it. You know, I was trying to be a little Mr. Supportive Director. And he'd say, and when you watch the movie, if you watch it again, you'll see that as the story progresses, his bones get stiffer. Like, because that character would be sleeping on the floor and be out in the cold, and you see his posture start to like slowly over the course of the movie change. And you know that's something he worked on.
Yeah.
You know that he wanted to stay out in the cold to make his bones stiffer, I presume, so that he'd be more.
You went from De Niro to Pacino. What's the sort of very similar and obviously from the same generation, but they also seem different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. I mean, two gods of mine, two gods of everybody's. It's amazing that they both can be equally, at the same level of spectacular greatness and could not be more different.
Right.
Their approaches, their approach is similar in that they're fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot let a non-truthful millisecond go by. They will respond to whatever happens in character, miraculously. And they're both very steeped in the work, but stylistically completely different. The nature of the creations that they birth could not be more different. One's not better than the other. They're just like,
Right. But they're better when they have the breast.
What?
They're better when they got the breast, keeping them, keep steering. This could go on all night because I could, but I know. Well, no.
That's an eighth of the house again.
It's an eighth of the house. We have to show another movie, but there's would you just tell briefly because you worked with De Niro and Hoffman, the time that you worked with our mutual friend, who was a young actor,
Yes.
Who was giving you some lip.
Oh yeah.
And you said,
well, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I believe was actually working in a deli when I cast him in Scent of a Woman. And, he was supposed to play one of these minor kids in the thing, and I saw they did an improv, and I thought, fuck it, this kid's, he's wrong for the part, but he's playing the lead kid. He's just so sensational. And, but he had never, I don't think he had done a movie, maybe some little, I don't know what. But I had worked on another project with Dustin Hoffman, and that's a whole thing, but it didn't come to fruition for me. But at one point, Phil was giving me a hard time about a real actor thing. I think I said, Phil, and he was really being resistant. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember if he was right or wrong. But finally I said, well, that's it. I worked with De Niro, Pacino, and the two Hoffmans, Dustin and Philip. And needless to say, he became.
You were right.
Yeah. But at the time, it was a cutting thing for a director to say to him. But here's an interesting story about Phil. There's a scene in the movie, where he really gets to do stuff. It's this disciplinary committee scene, and we shot tons of footage like a lot of footage. But the first thing we shot of him was a really wide establishing shot, just to warm everybody up. We did the whole scene in this really wide shot. It's like just to get everybody loose. You're not going to use it. It's like a rehearsal. And Philip gave one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen. It was like, what the fuck? It was like ridiculous. It was the wrong performance. It was not the right performance for the character or the story. But it was like, it was like something out of like a Kazan movie. Like it was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I said, okay, Phil, first of all, never blow your wad in a wide mass stage. Don't do that. And that's the wrong performance, which was a little, so we shaped it. But he was so earnest. He didn't know not to go there when the camera was on.
Right.
And it would be amazing to dig that up. It was like, something out of the great 50s, actor studio, heart-wrenching things. It was amazing.
When I first started out, there was this legendary story that in the middle of the night, Marty Brest had Kodak opened up because they needed more film to shoot Scent of a Woman.
I think it was on a Thanksgiving weekend or something. Yeah, we called the guy that had to wake a guy up and
And I always thought
yeah.
one of these
and
days.
And Beverly Hills Cop, we had to put fans on the camera because they were overheating because we were shooting so much film. As a matter of fact, Kodak gave me like the Director of the Year award. Whatever, filmmaker. Yeah.
You were notorious for the amount of film that you shot.
I couldn't understand it. I guess that you got everybody there,
Mm-hmm.
and plus it came from like film school where it's like people that starved in the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
They won't leave a crumb on the table. I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna shoot. Man. Everybody's here. What, I'm gonna save film? And then they said, well, you can't print everything. You can only print the ones you like. I said, I'm going to shoot a shot of Robert De Niro not printed. Like, what the, maybe there's a little, especially the way it was cut. You got to print everything because there may be a little like twitch in a shitty take. And that twitch will say, oh, if we use that twitch, we can use this other piece. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a problem anymore in the digital age. It's a problem for you, though, right? Because you're a film guy.
Yeah, well, but... Oh, Marty.
Remember, we only have an eighth of the house behind us.
I know.
So
I hope you guys enjoyed listening to him talk as much as I enjoyed.
Paul is my idol. This is like, I love you.
He's an absolute grace. Marty Brest, thank you for coming. Enjoy Beverly Hills.